Welcome. Great to have you here. This is a unique moment, a moment that unites all of us. We all face anxiety and loss. We all see broken systems. We all experience the impact of the climate crisis. This is a unique moment. This is a turning point if we choose to make it one. This is a moment to reflect, to learn, to share, and to co-create.
Welcome. Great to have you here.
I invite you to
is a unique moment,
a moment that unites. Contribute. I ask you to contribute. I ask you to partner to fix broken systems. I ask you to join the movement so everyone can step into their change-making power. I ask you to nominate the next generation of changemakers. And I ask you to share your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise. And I ask you to donate to support changemakers. This is our moment to fix the world. This is our moment to contribute. Today is the day, and you are the one.
Welcome everyone to our session on Catalyst 2030, leading collaborators and social entrepreneurs working towards system change. We are here today to hopefully inspire you by the goals and values of Catalyst 2030 and to provide you with an overview of the work of Catalyst 2030. There's a lot of work happening. And to help you understand how you can engage with the very colorful world of Catalyst 2030 if you decided to do so. And I'm excited that with me, I have 4 speakers. And with me today is Karen Spencer from Whole Child International. I will just briefly pull up the slides to show you again. And Rana Dajani from We Love Reading, both 2 Ashoka Fellows. And we were supposed to have Colin with us, but unfortunately he can't make it. So if you're surprised to see a new face here, we're really delighted to have Christine Pearson, founder of Lifeline Energy, step in. All our members of Catalyst 2030, who will be sharing with us their involvement in the organization, why they believe in its work, and how you can become engaged. My name is Florian Rutsch. I'm representing Ashoka in this work, together with Odin Mühlenbein, who's here too in the background, representing us in the chat. So if you have any questions there, any comments, please post them and he'll be there to respond or to forward them to us. And there is also a feature, as you might know by now, a question feature on Swapcard that allows you to upvote those questions. So we have these 60 minutes, including a Q&A at the end, to hear your questions. So please do post them in there. Use the chat to connect with us. And of course, most importantly, reach out if you would like to collaborate. There should be a link on Swapcard. It's here to catalyst2030.net, and we'll be posting more of those links throughout the session too. So I just want to share a little bit from the Ashoka perspective before we kick off, and tell a little bit the story of how, from our perspective, we got involved, why are we involved, and what excites us about this work. Fundamentally, we understand and believe that collaboration is absolutely necessary to achieve system change. And we see that here in Catalyst 2030, social entrepreneurs and practitioners are coming together to achieve just that. So as a group together, these practitioners have a stronger voice to together affect specific issues and SDGs. They are able to influence the ecosystem and have a strong voice together in the ecosystem. And they're able to cross many boundaries that we currently still have. We're excited to be working with several other networks, with the Skoll Foundation and their Skoll awardees, with Schwab, the Schwab Foundation and Schwab Fellows, and with Echoing Green and their network of social entrepreneurs, all coming together to create and support this network. But ultimately, it is practitioner driven, and it is driven by you, the social entrepreneurs. It is you living the values of collaboration, showing what's possible, even pushing the boundaries of collaboration. And ultimately, my understanding is that it's a very energized network of collaborative systemic leaders. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what Catalyst is. I think you will notice in the coming talks and presentations, there's a lot going on, and it's sometimes almost overwhelming. But if I would have to sort of try and tell the essence of it, I'd say it is an incredible network of systemic leaders that are ready to collaborate, that understand the value of collaboration. And so it's an opportunity for you to step in, help make that collaboration happen, help find collaborators, and really leverage the full collective power of the sector that we have. It's still a young network. It's only a year old, really. The first conversation started last summer. Much has happened already. Among others, I'm involved in the funding group, which is working on influencing the funding system. Odin is involved in as well. Karen is involved as well. Several of us here, and one of the first actions that we took together is the collaborative Embracing Complexity report. If that's something you're interested in, we had a session on that yesterday, and you can watch the recording about that on the Swapcard platform. Much more has happened, and you will hear about that in a moment. I want to point out in particular a report called Getting from Crisis to System Change. A link will be shared to that in a moment too, which has been part of a big campaign in the early summers following the COVID pandemic, which has surfaced many recommendations from 1,600 organizations on how to tackle the COVID crisis together, and which launched together with the UN Deputy Secretary General. So with that little intro, and hopefully stirring up some of your excitement to hear from our next speakers, I am delighted to welcome Karen Spencer on the stage. I'll switch again to gallery view so we can see all of us together. And Karen, thank you for talking us through a little bit what Catalyst is all about, what is happening, what are all of the work streams. All the best. It's a lot to share. I'm excited to hear from you now.
It's a lot to share. There is a lot going on. And as you said, I think one of the most exciting things about Catalyst is it's how dynamic it is. And I think for the, social entrepreneurs, we like dynamic things, and this is very dynamic. So I'm going to share my screen in a few slides here. Here we go. Perfect. Can you see? Hopefully you can see my screen. Is that good? All right, great. So I too was involved. I think pretty much everybody here on this call was involved in the very early stages on those beginning calls where it was really, we have what we call an instigator in chief, Jaru Bilboria, and she is an Ashoka Fellow, a Schwab Fellow, and a Skoll Fellow. And I think one of the really interesting pieces about this was really the founding and bringing together the four organizations that support social entrepreneurs at the forefront of that: Echoing Green, Ashoka, the Schwab Foundation, and Skoll. And that energy of those four linking together is really powerful and a fun thing to be. So it brings all those networks together. I had wonderful experiences of making wonderful connections with Ashoka Fellows previously, but it's been really fun to expand that network and get to know other social entrepreneurs in those other networks and form relationships and connections that I hadn't made before. So that's definitely a big part of it, is that network and that collaboration. And I think, it's drawing a particularly dynamic group of social entrepreneurs into the mix. So what is Catalyst? Catalyst was, as I mentioned, sort of instigated by Giroux, gathered everyone. Giroux has a proven track record of incredible success in forming movements. So Childline being her first, which most of you will have heard of. And so it's been wonderful to see her in action again, getting this energy and everyone involved and bringing in so many different partners and thought leaders into the mix. And the goal is to really get everybody behind this, supporting how can we get to the SDGs by the goal of 2030. And we all know that that's obviously at the moment was behind before COVID, and now is looking even further away in terms of how far off we are going to be to that goal. And we're really looking at 4 major challenges that the Catalyst is looking to address. So the lack of resources to the sector. So it's about really how are we going to take all of the potential of the social entrepreneurship community and leverage it to achieve this goal. And the barriers that we have over a series of very collaborative, interactive processes identified. And so this is something I think that, is something really interesting that I have not experienced before, is this collaborative process where we all engage and everyone's feedback is heard. So we work on reports, we work on coming up with ideas, and it really, everyone does have a voice in this process. And through this process, we identify these 4 big problems that are blocking our opportunity to really reach our potential. The lack of resources, the lack of collaboration and silos, the disconnect between funding model and needs, and the lack of voice that we as social entrepreneurs have in important decision-making rooms. So those are the 4 areas that we're looking to impact. The network is at the moment 558 social entrepreneurs, innovators and entrepreneurs and supporters in 160 countries, touching 1 billion lives. So it's a big network and growing. And one of the things, I was on a call with Giroux yesterday, Childline is a part of this, and therefore it's not just Childline as one organization, but Childline is a cohesive cohort of 900 organizations. So the network is actually huge when you really look at the collective power of all of us together. The members cover all this SDGs, and a lot of the entrepreneurs involved, as I mentioned, are later stage and really, really successful in bringing a lot of experience to the community, which is really great. And now I'm going to pass it over to Christine to talk about the next couple of slides.
You're muted, Christine.
I thought I had unmuted myself. Sorry. Don't be frightened by this slide. It looks a bit intimidating, but it's actually not. This is kind of the structure of Catalyst. So if you look down there at the bottom, you'll see sort of what looks like a house, and you'll be learning more about that later. But the idea is that there's a secretariat, which Karen has mentioned Giroux, that Giroux heads as the executive director. So there's sort of a mothership that's virtual that supports all of us. And there are many, many different ways to engage. So secretariat at the bottom, if you will. And in between the secretariat and everything else really lies communications. And that's the area that I actually head. We have, can you get the slide back? And then there's all kinds of ways to engage, as Karen mentioned. So there's work, I'm gonna not necessarily mention them in order, I'll mention them in the way they work in my head. So there's working groups, there's 9 or 10 working groups now, which would include membership and communications and impact and funding, as Florian mentioned. And then from that, you have a variety of impact clusters. So they'll work with subgroups of the working groups, and then the task forces, of which there are plenty. And I actually probably think I get the award the prize, could be the booby prize for the most task forces served on. But they're really interesting because, as Karen said, you're working with people that you've never worked with before. And let me just say that I was on the very first Catalyst call back in the early summer of last year. And I remember there sitting, rolling my eyes back, thinking this will never work, because I've been in the social entrepreneur space for probably, more than 20 years now. And I thought the last thing that social entrepreneurs are is actually collaborative with each other. They're competitive, another C. And I'm very glad and happy to say I was wrong. So it's been extraordinary to see how people have set aside their own agendas and have genuinely collaborated on an issue that's bigger than themselves. So in addition, there are these collaboration clusters that you can work on a very specific issue. We've got country chapters emerging. Brazil is probably furthest ahead. There's another one for Latin America, another one for India, an Africa one is forming, and the Middle East and Africa. So those are all quite nascent at the moment, but also very exciting. And then we have an incubation board, which are the chairs of the working groups, and they work with the secretariat to just, sort of steer the organization in the right direction and deal with the big issues and questions. Next slide, please. Right. So first and foremost, Catalyst is a values-driven organization. So when I mentioned serving on task forces, I was on the original task force that worked on the mission and the vision, and that was a very collaborative process, so that took an inordinate amount of time. And then we tackled values, which even was a lot longer. And then from the values group comes something called the commitment or pledge, because when you're global, you could say something, it offends someone, they don't even know it. And so we have a commitment and a pledge of behaviors and actions that sort of govern how you operate with each other. But I think these values are really important, and that's part of the commitment and really what governs the way we work with one another. We put people and nature at the center of everything we do. We have a highly co-creative mindset. It's very collaborative. And when I say collaborative, if you think you've collaborated before, you've seen nothing like the collaboration and ensuring that everybody's voices are heard. Also, humble audacity. We have huge goals. I mean, it's mind-blowing to think the goals that we have in terms of the SDGs, but at the same time, we know none of us can accomplish them on our own. And one that I really love is a spirit of generosity, is people genuinely give freely of their time, of their networks, of their wisdom for one another. And if you have any questions about that, I'll happy to answer them later on. And on this point, I'll turn over to Rana.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. So I'm just going to share my slides, share my screen. I think I need...
Stop sharing. Yes. There you
go. I'm sharing, right? Can you see my screen now? Is my slide visible?
Was a moment ago, yeah. If you click present again, I think it'll come back. If you click present.
Oh, yeah. All right, here we go.
There we go.
All right, so I'd like to first introduce myself by saying I'm going to share in this part of this meeting how I have benefited from Catalyst 2030. And I'm going to share my journey. And so that you can really walk in my shoes and I can really share that experience, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a mom, I have 4 kids. I'm also a teacher, and I'm a professor of molecular biology. So I do science, work with genes and proteins, which is very important today because of COVID-19, trying to understand how that works. And I'm a social entrepreneur as well. That's why I'm here today. And I've been called a feminist. I like to say I'm a human being trying to, make sure everybody has the freedom to express themselves and be who they are. So coming from that background, I learned of Catalyst 2030 in February. Actually, there was a press release that I got through some newsletter from another NGO. And when I read what Catalyst 2030 is all about, which you just heard, I thought, wow, this is fascinating. I need to be part of this. So I looked down in that press release to find an email or a name, and I found Jeru's email actually right out there at the end of the press release. So I immediately sent her an email and said, hey, I'm interested to join. And she said, you're welcome, come join. And that's how my journey started. And I felt like I was thrown into the deep end of a swimming pool because there were no guidelines. It was just, I don't know if you've ever been thrown into the deep end of a swimming pool. I do that with my students because I want them to feel uncomfortable so that they can figure out how to balance themselves and navigate life. Because that's the only way you mature and learn. And because it's all about the journey, the actual process. And that's what Catalyst 2030 did to me. So it was really kind of a nice pun. My students would be very happy that I went through that experience. But it was fascinating and invigorating because suddenly after struggling and feeling uncomfortable, I was suddenly swimming like a fish, achieving my goals, meeting all these wonderful people, and having a wonderful experience. So I'm going to tell you how that happened, and I'm going to highlight 5 points. The first one is being part of Catalyst 2030 is not about an award. It isn't. There's no flashy ceremony. There's no like camera and flashlights and let's write about you. No, it's you just become part of a family. And you're there because you chose to. And you can quit whenever you want, by the way. And I've learned something. If you have the freedom to quit, you never quit. If somebody says you have to be part of this, you say, why? What are you going to give me? So there's no expectations either from you. You set up your own expectations. There's no agenda. You set up your own agenda. And as social entrepreneurs ourselves, we're always curious. We always want to find out things. I mean, that's what led me to Catalyst 2030 at first, right? We don't want to leave any stone unturned. We want to try to, figure out everything. And so that's the spirit coming into Catalyst 2030, is that you create your own agenda and you kind of figure out what is it that you want to be. And you're in it with everybody else. So what does that mean? The second point is that in this Catalyst 2030 network, you have people, you have to navigate the path, right? And there are people, what's cool about it is that there are people from every stage in their career. So you have very mature people who will become your mentors or role models, like Jeru. We keep talking about Jeru, but truly she deserves that, and others, of course. And then you have people who are struggling, just entering, young people into this field, young in terms of experience, not age. They could be any age, or people in the middle, like me. And what you do is you try to figure out which path to take. And believe me, it was first very confusing because I was thinking, do I want to push my organization, my program, my work, We Love Reading, to the front? Or wait a minute, I realized it's not about that. It's about how can I find others who we can work together to achieve our goals together? Is it about finding funding? No, I realize it's about meeting people to get advice, which is much more important than the funding. Much more valuable. What is it about? How do I do a business model? Or is it more about freeing myself? So actually, what I realized is that I was trying to figure out how to keep We Love Reading, my organization, alive, especially during COVID-19. And it was a struggle trying to figure it out. And then I realized that, no, it's about letting go. And what I did is I put my program free online on a platform so everybody could use it. And that way I really achieved my goals of reaching every child in a way that I had not imagined. So what it allowed me is to shift my framework, my mindset, to look at things in a different way. So rather than looking narrow and small, I was looking at it from a bird's eye view because I had all this input, all these conversations going around me by participating in different groups to kind of figure out, navigate where I am in the globe, where I am in this world, in a way that I would never have been able to achieve or realize if I was on my own or just meeting here and there with people. So this mentoring, this role model, this kind of figuring out the environment was very, very helpful to me to really be where I am today. It's also the third point. It's not a competition. there's no competition. You know, social, like Karen mentioned, or Kristen mentioned, competition, the social entrepreneurs are very competitive. That's true. In Catalyst 2030, that spirit of competition kind of, I don't know, it just disappeared. It's all about collaboration, and everybody is so open to help. And apparently, I think if you are open to share, you become a role model, and it's contagious, and everybody wants to share. It becomes, I think, competing to share. Who shares the most, if we can talk about that. And that's part of who we are. You know, as human beings, from an evolutionary perspective, we're very altruistic. We want to help others. And so we want to draw upon that rather than falling into the trap of competition, which is not healthy for our objectives. And maybe this is a way of creating a whole new world of change. So working in a collaboration. And why? Because you meet people who you may, across disciplines, right? So you don't necessarily have to only meet with the people who work in your own field. And when you meet people across disciplines, you realize that you may share goals, you may share similar challenges, and together you figure them out. Something like human-centered design, but it's more organic. And when you do it organically, trying to figure out the challenges and how to solve them, it's more also, I like to refer to evolution a lot. It's because it's trial and error, which is natural selection. And in the end, you end up with a solution that's much more holistic and therefore affects system change more than just being very narrow, affecting little changes here and there. And so, for example, I'll tell you an example. So We Love Reading was struggling to find somebody to help us develop a mobile app so that we could connect our end users with headquarters. So rather than creating an app from scratch, we found a company, an organization, sorry, a nonprofit that has that already has an app that works. It's called Waves for Change, who's a member of Catalyst. And we said, hey, could we share that mobile app? And they said, of course, yeah. So we started working with them. And then another company, a corporate, which is part of Catalyst 2030, offered us unlimited users on their platform for our online training that I told you I just put out for free for everybody. Because I put it up for free, they were willing to give us unlimited users on it. So these kind of partnerships started being created. And because when you ask the right questions, you get even more questions. So you're really digging deeper and understanding what's happening and going on. The fourth point is that because of COVID-19, we can't travel, we can't meet physically. And so it's kind of like we're all on this flat screen together, but it has flattened Earth in a way that we can meet across cultures, across countries, across barriers. We don't need visas. And suddenly you're talking to people from the most remote places in the world, so long as they have some internet and a device. And that's kind of feasible for the people who are on part of the network. And I'm sure they can even talk about solving that problem. Maybe language is a little bit of a problem because we all speak English, but even then, people are connecting in different languages. So we have Spanish, we're trying to do something in Arabic for the Middle East. But this is amazing, not just because now everybody can be there equally, but we also remove the power dynamics, you know, because usually when you're in a meeting physically, there's these power dynamics. Some people are shy, some people feel that they're not, you know, able to communicate properly. But with Zoom and all these other platforms, you can write your question in a chat. If you don't know how to express it properly, you can follow up later in an email, which would have been impossible if you were meeting face to face. The fifth point is that you are meeting people who we would otherwise not meet. So we have funders, corporates, impact investors, international NGOs, because everybody's interested to be part of Catalyst 2030. And so when you go into these people thinking, oh, am I going to meet these people because I want money? No. The whole mindset is different. You, as a social entrepreneur, are at the center of this stage, so to speak. And people are interested in your opinion. So you step up and talk about what you think is right, how you think funders should behave, how should they fund, and you talk about what are the challenges you face as a social entrepreneur. And you are center stage in this network, and people are interested to hear you. So it changes how you look at yourself, how you perceive yourself as a social entrepreneur, and how you talk to the world. And that's how you change how the world thinks about you. And hopefully this is one way that we can change, create system change in the world through this platform. So it's a roller coaster, and it's exhilarating, it's thrilling. I've never had so much energy, enthusiasm. I can't keep up, as was mentioned earlier, with all the meetings and things, but I can quit whenever I want. So it goes back to you as an individual. How much you put in is how much you get out. And sometimes this is uncomfortable for people because they like to have structure of things. But hey, we're social entrepreneurs. This is how we, you know, this is what makes us, this is the spice that makes us wake up every morning and keep going. And yeah, and I think what really made me realize how important social entrepreneurs are in creating change, instigating change. And I like to compare it that we are the yeast in the dough, right? Without us, the dough will never rise and nothing will happen. And I think Catalyst 2030 has shown this and given us a platform, a place to actually manifest this and reach our fullest potential. So I'll leave it at there. So for those who want to join, Karen is going to tell us how to do that.
Thanks, Rana. That was so inspiring. Thanks for sharing that journey. And I think it does bring up just the degree to which catalyst, you make your own catalyst, right? I think that's really a big important message, is that everybody's experience and there's so much available within Catalyst. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the working groups, because I think that's a big part of what's available to people in terms of joining working groups. But it's very interesting how everyone gets a different thing. I myself, in terms of my journey right now as a social entrepreneur, my own evolution has led me to be really frustrated with some of the barriers to myself and my colleagues having more impact. And so what has drawn me the most is really the working groups and the work around shifting some of those things, shifting the way funding happens, and those kinds of big things. I think one of the most inspiring things for me to be involved in was actually a follow-on, to give credit where credit's due. It was a follow-on to Florian's earlier work, looking at systems work. The original report that you did, Florian, what was the name of that first report that you did?
7 steps for funding system change.
Yeah, which is an amazing piece of work. And then the Embracing Complexity report was a follow-on from that. And I so enjoyed being a part of the team that got to articulate our perspective about what's getting in our way from having a bigger impact, and what's getting in a way of us being able to really address the issues that we really want to solve, and how is funding getting in our way, and that process, that collaborative process of all feeding in our ideas, and then having the incredible gift of McKinsey & Company coming in to help us synthesize our ideas. We've been really fortunate to have McKinsey, a longtime Ashoka partner, support us in the development of a lot of these papers, and it's been really fun. So for me, that's my sort of what I've enjoyed the most about being part of Catalyst, is having an opportunity to participate in some of these papers being developed on how governments can work more closely with social entrepreneurs, because that's another thing that in my journey I've become really passionate about, is how effective it is as a social entrepreneur to scale your work using partnerships with government. So we just have a paper being released now. I think it was released yesterday, wasn't it, at the summit? About working, how governments can be more effective in that. So those are the kinds of things for me that have brought me. I'm going to just share a little bit about the working groups, because I think that's important. Hold on one second. Here we are. A few more slides on that, and then we will move on to some of the questions I know. So I'll just touch on this a little bit in terms of what the different pillars of the organizations are. The overarching goal is to collectively achieve the SDGs by 2030. We have a couple of different pillars, ways that we think that that's possible: catalyze collaboration, and then change the ecosystem, and then catalyzing the sector, and the foundation of obviously building and maintaining the movement foundation, which is Catalyst, which encompasses all these things. We talked a little bit about the working groups, and I'm just going to go through the what those working groups are, because these are really the areas where as a member you can engage in subjects, whatever, as Rana was saying, whatever really inspires you and where you're drawn is where you should end up. There's the membership working group, so maybe you're passionate about getting more people to join, and about communities that you care about being able to join the sector. This is an incredibly inclusive group. We welcome everyone. The communications working group that I'm on with Christine, who's leading that, which is amazing. A lot of great, exciting work happening on that. If your passion and your interest is comms, That's a great space to be. Impact and client-driven development. I happen to love this one. I was on a session yesterday with Frederick, a 2-hour session, which was so moving, really helping us understand how we can do better at having the people that we're looking to serve be at the center and their voices be the loudest. And Frederick and a lot of the different organizations that were involved in the session yesterday have a tremendous amount of experience in this space. And it's really an exciting opportunity to learn and ask questions and be connected with people who are allowing us to use their platforms and share their learning and really leapfrog some of the learning that you might have with your organization to implement something like that. The funding working group, that's a group that I co-chair because that is something that I'm really passionate about, is removing barriers for social entrepreneurs to really achieving what we need to achieve. There's a group working with governments and the UN system, doing some really dynamic work there. Sue's a big part of that. The external stakeholders working group, the donor working group. So Tim Halstead, who is a social entrepreneur himself, but has now moved to be the head of a foundation, leads that, walking a lot of donors through this process and connecting them with Catalyst, which is wonderful. The COVID-19 working group, and then there's a new group that's just emerged, and I think this speaks to the dynamic nature of Catalyst, city working group for people who are really passionate about bringing these principles at a more local level. So I think Christine's going to answer the questions about co-creation, but I think that is an important thing to mention. This is what happens when you throw a bunch of social entrepreneurs in the room, is that things are dynamic and evolving and meeting the needs as they arise. So I'm sure that if we looked at this in a year, there'd be lots of things that would be changed, and that's part of the excitement and the joy of being part of this incredible team. I think we went through that. I'll hand it over now to Christine to answer. I know there's some questions in the chat, so I think I'll pass it over to Christine to answer some of those questions because she was intimately involved in them.
Right. So this is how the values came about. Well, if you look at what our mission and vision is to collectively achieve the SDGs, we went through a process. And when I say we, what happens is on the WhatsApp group, and now Zoho Connect, which is our emerging social network of catalyzers. Anybody interested in the topic can join the group. And so there were probably 10 of us, quite diverse from around the world and varying probably 15 time zones. And we looked at words that we thought would embody our vision. And then explain them. So this went through a constant process of iteration, probably for 8 weeks or so. Then it was put out to the membership. It was first put to the incubation board, which is, as mentioned, the governing, the co-chairs of the working groups. And they put their input into it. Then we refined it again, and then we put it out to the General Assembly. So it is a very collaborative process. And then from those values, as I said, then comes a very similar process and quite a time-consuming one, again, around the commitment and the pledge. Anything else on that? Or have I anything you can think of I've left out of that?
There was also a question about how the structure came about. I don't know if you want to touch a little bit more on that.
Okay.
Too.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought Karen was going to take that question. Well, it's organic. Like we all met in the UK in February, thanks to Karen's marvelous hospitality, to work out the fundamentals of a structure. And so that's where that sort of house came about, and the pillars is that there'd be a foundation and then the working groups. And then after we sort of worked with that structure for a while and it seemed to be moving, McKinsey, bless their hearts, came in. They didn't tell us what to do. They listened to the membership. They listened. They spent a lot of time. They volunteered, because we had a lot of people were skeptical about this first. You know, how did they know about it? Do they really know about social entrepreneurs? But they didn't tell us what we should do. They asked us a lot of questions. And they synthesized those answers into a structure that they thought would work best for us based on our comments. And then we commented on that, and that's how we've ended up where we are. And everything is still fluid. You know, if something comes along and we think it's like Karen just now talked about working group 10, that's the first I've heard of it. And so, you know, that's the way it is. And you can't get all bent out of shape saying, nobody told me. That's just the nature of the beast, which kind of makes it fun. So we're all experimenting. There have been very few rules. We've been guided by Jeru in her experience with building movements, but it's really been up to us. So if you're a creative person, this has been a fantastic experience because you get to express yourself in different ways. If you're more introverted and want to work on projects that involve writing and thinking, there's opportunities for that as well. So it really is exciting. And if you had told me a year ago where we are today, I could not have imagined it. And so I'm going to wonder now in a year's time where we'll be.
Thank you very much, Christine. Karen, did you just want to respond to that as well?
Well, I think I was just going to say about that process, about that question about how did the structure come to be? It's exactly what Christine was describing, right? In terms of how did the values come to be? It's always the same process. And I think what's interesting is, you know, there was a discussion about values. I care about values a lot, but that's not something I really wanted to. But Christine, I remember Christine was like, I really want to make sure we get this right. And Christine had a passion for that. So she joined that group and was involved in that. And that's how Catalyst works, right? There's something going on. And if that's really what grabs you, then you go and get involved. And if you want to get involved, then you have a say. And that's just the, you know, collective, it's all very collaborative, hugely. I'm gonna agree with Christine. I have never seen anything like this, just in terms of the level of collaboration. I will reiterate what Christine said. If you think you've been collaborating, you wait until you try this. This is a collaboration to a whole new level, but it's fantastic. And I think I'm certainly learning a lot just in observing the process and how impactful it is to get so many people involved and to engage with so many people.
Thank you, Karen. And if I can just add one anecdote to that, that was a recent defining moment for me of that, is where I think we noticed that we were moving into some of the older traditional ideas of conflict of interest, and what happens, right? How do we align these different interests? How do we make them happen? And again, it was really the change, that mindset change from, no, actually, we're not in a conflict of interest. We are in an alignment of interest here. Us supporting each other, us working together is what we are after. So there were some more questions, and I know there's been a lot of rich sharing, a lot of rich insights. There are two more that we've seen I wanted to pick out. Please keep posting if you have any additional questions. We will also make sure to share more information in the slides.
That's interesting. I see one here about the working group. Is there a working group around young people, entrepreneurs, to leverage their insights? That's an interesting question. Anyone want to take that?
Yes, Rana was going to.
Yeah, so yes, there was. So again, as mentioned earlier, this is very organic. So some of the members of Catalyst said, hey, we need a youth group, just exactly like that question. And so a group of the members, headed by Emer, who's from I think South Africa, they started a group. Of course, they call it working group or a chapter, so it doesn't matter. But they started a group that emphasizes youth, because youth have to be front and central of social entrepreneurship, because they are the next generation. They're going to be going forward with what we are doing today. And it's a fantastic group. It has people who are older, it has youth, and it has invited youth from across the globe. And actually, we present in the General Assembly, so they presented in the General Assembly. And now, because I'm part of that group as well, we're working on two things. One, finding the right platforms for these youth to engage and talk. And of course, it's not us finding it, they are finding it. And then we're working on the challenge of language, because we really want the kids from the local neighborhood, from the street level, to be engaged. not the elite who can speak English and therefore not allow the other people to participate. So now we're working on maybe creating groups who speak a particular language together, and we're exploring actually simultaneous translation so that I could be speaking in Arabic and expressing myself and really showing my concern or what I'm thinking in a very imaginative way, and others can understand what I'm talking about. So this is to answer that question about the youth. The other, I think one of the questions was about collaboration and the collaboratives corner, and how is that maintained, and then how do we share it with a wider group? I'm part of that, and it's an interesting adventure as well. It's all about adventures for those who who want to be on an adventure without actually walking out in the street. So the thing is, the group comes together and people start discussing and sharing how they see collaboration from their perspective. And if enough people agree on that kind of collaboration, it just spins off and becomes its own group. So we have a pipeline group, we have a coffee conversation group, we have different types of groups that all focus on collaboration, but in different ways. And again, it's how much you put in, how much you get out. And then we present in the General Assembly. So we submit that we would like to share what we've done with the wider group so that all people in the network know about what we're doing, and then they can actually come and join us later on. So that's kind of the loose kind of framework of how the collaboration working group works.
Thank you, Rana, for that. And let's see if we have, I think you sort of touched on that question already, but there was another question coming in on whether quote unquote ordinary people can get involved.
So I think everybody can get involved. You fill in a form, and I think Karen is going to, or Kristen is going to talk about this. You fill in a form, you submit it, and somebody who told you about it, you would put their name to validate who you are. But you could be anybody. And then again, there's no agenda. It's up to you. The more you put in, the more you get out. If you're not putting in anything, or you realize this is not for me, that's fine. You can drop off. And I think that's what's so unique about Catalyst 2030.
Yeah. And it is, I think, yeah, please, Christine.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to add to that. So if you are interested in joining, the website is under renovation right now. It's still operational, but it's a very big shock here. Collaborative process. We've got a website task force together. Some people have absolutely no experience with websites whatsoever, and others are very skilled. It's about a dozen of us. We meet once a week. We've got a fantastic lead designer, and we're collaboratively creating the website as it goes along. But there is a form it's a very simple form you fill out. And then someone will get in contact with you. It might not be right away just because there's a bit of a backlog. And then if you happen to know somebody who's a member of Catalyst, then you would reference their name. And then, chances are, I don't know, I actually don't know on what basis you're ruled out. So, there's a high level of trust in the process as well. And then, then you come on to what's called the General Assembly, which happens the last Thursday of every month. And then with that, you get to hear about what's the latest that's going on in Catalyst. And then you start to decide what, as Rana says, if you want to get involved in any of the variety of different initiatives going on.
I want to comment on what you said, Kristen, the word trust. It's so important. And I think that's one thing that's lacking in the world, is that everybody thinks they know what's best for others because they don't trust others to know what's best for themselves. And this is the core of people-driven change, where people are in the middle and everybody who wants to help them, trust them to go forward. And we're just on the side to help, a guide on the side. And that's part of what Catalyst 2030 is all about. It's all about trust. And when you trust people, it's mutual. And it brings out the best, and those who, the worst actually falls off by itself, organically. It's very naturally. Again, it's just like evolution. If you're doing it right, you stay on the train, so to speak, and if you're not, you just fall off. So trust is core, and it's part of the values that we promote as Catalyst 2030.
I thought I'd like to just answer a question that I see in the chat here that I think is interesting. So it's how do the collaboration corners manage the scope of their collaboration? How do you balance number one, adequate focus on particular issues? And I think that's interesting because I don't, and anybody feel free to jump in if I got this wrong, but I don't think we make anybody focus on anything. It's not that kind of organization. We're going to focus on what this is. This is a member driven and led. So we don't say, ooh, we need to, these are the topics that we have to cover. That's just not how it works. So whatever the membership and the members are interested in working on, that's what's going to get worked on. I got that right?
Yeah, you do. And the other thing I might just add to that is there's a very high level of transparency. So all the reports are on either a Google Drive or on Zoho Connect. As I said, I mentioned that earlier, we're trying to migrate people to the beauty of it, as well as all the recordings of all the meetings are either on the website or on Zoho. So that is something that I must admit that I wasn't really used to. I have not been accustomed to this level of transparency and accountability. And I think young people coming in today have that much more automatically than perhaps my generation did. Yeah, so that's been a real eye-opener for me.
Thank you all. We're nearing the end of our session. And so I just want to announce that please share any last questions now if you still have any burning ones on your mind, and we'll try and still squeeze that in. Otherwise, I hope that you've really enjoyed this conversation and sharing, and have found some of the pieces for your Build Your Own Catalyst Experience toolkit. There is, as has been said, really a catalyst for everyone. And if anything, I think for me as well, it's been an incredible learning experience, learning from everyone. One of the mantras of Giroux as well that keeps ringing with me, and just as a follow-up to Christine's and Karen's statement, is that she always says, if people say we go this way, we go this way. And that's how we do it. Indeed, there are no fixed roles really, or fixed power structures or any of that sorts. It's you define your membership by being an active member, and that's how you define the organization and the goals altogether. So let's see if anything else still came up. Otherwise, I guess it's time for a round of closing remarks. Any message that you still would like to leave our viewers with? Christine, if I can invite you, would you like to share any last message with everyone?
Well, I think pretty much the highlights and talking points have been said. If you want to know more, you can go to the website, catalyst2030.net, and fill out an application of about 4 questions, I think it is, and then come on board and see if it's going to be for you or not.
Thank you, Christine. Rana, how about you?
Yes. So first, I want to remind everybody that catalyst in biology means something that makes things happen, and much faster than if that catalyst was not there. So that's very, very important. And Catalyst 2030 is different from Ashoka. So it's not that you're going to, oh, I'm already part of Ashoka or Schwab or Skoll. Why would I go into another network? No, it's totally different. It's you need to be part of it if you really want to make a change in the world. So my advice is have confidence in yourself, speak up, say what you have in your mind when you're part of Catalyst 2030. And you know what? You're the catalyst, you're the yeast that's going to make the dough rise and make this world a better place going forward. And welcome. We look forward to meeting you all and working together.
Thank you, Rana, and over to Karen with also.
Yeah, well, I think, I would really encourage anybody who's even interested a little bit to go and maybe check out the reports that we've done and see if this point of view resonates with you and if this is something that you really want, that you feel passionate about. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff happening next year. Florian and Odin are working on a Funders Academy that's going to be really exciting in terms of an opportunity to educate funders about why systems change funding is so crucial to us all achieving what we're looking to achieve. We've got a funder diagnostic that we're moving on. We are planning on presenting awards to funders, which we're quite excited about because we think that we need to really highlight the good work that's being done by people taking a leap and really moving in this new direction, and want to highlight that audacity and spirit of trailblazing amongst the funder community. So much going on. More reports will be done. We have a lot of sessions online that we do, live sessions that have been, you can look at our past ones as well on the internet, on the website. Just that will also give you a really good feel for what this is about. And I really hope, I like the question about, is this for everyone? This is for everyone. If you care about social movements and you care about achieving the SDGs and you care about social entrepreneurship and you're interested in this kind of community, I think this is a really great way to engage. And we really do welcome everyone from funders to people working in big organizations to people, who might be looking to collaborate more with social entrepreneurs. This is a really broad welcoming umbrella, and we welcome all voices. So I hope that you will check it out.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you to all of our speakers and members and co-creators of Catalyst, Karen, Rana, Christine. I think I saw some more also in the audience. Thank you for sharing, for making Catalyst hopefully more tangible and certainly exciting. As my key message to leave is just, please reach out, please connect. That's what we're here for, is to help this collaboration continue, build further momentum, and keep growing as it has. So please connect, please reach out. Also join our session tomorrow, same time as this one, 4 p.m. Central European time, on the soft launch of the report of how governments can support system change by collaborating with social entrepreneurs, which is, as been mentioned, the next piece of work coming out of this collaboration. So please join us there too. Reach out and keep collaborating. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your time at the summit.